Chances are you've heard of a GMO before. They're shaping biosciences and basically every fact of our everyday life that we take for granted. Today I'll be discussing some common questions that come up. I'll be discussing what they are, how they work, how we can use them, if they are safe, and what we could be using them for, among other things. So until now, I haven't actually told you what a GMO is. GMO stands for genetically modified organism. However, there is probably a better term for this, which would probably be genetically engineered organisms, because like the organism you probably are thinking about, it's someone that chooses one or two genes in it. That kind of organism, the gene is selected and researched, and it costs a lot of money, enough for the geneticist to make a hefty salary of, let me check, hold on, about $77,000 a year. That's pretty much an average. Some of them can make like $142,000 a year, but that's just me Googling it. Please don't be offended if you're an actual geneticist and watching this video. Enough about logistics. How exactly does one genetically modify an organism? Say I have guppies, which I do. I have Endler guppies. And I saw a guppy that had a cool pattern. I would separate it out, the male that I wanted to keep the pattern with say another female that had a interesting pattern. I chose the male with the most interesting pattern. I could breed parts of that out. Say I wanted to breed for greens. Then I would choose the offspring with the most greens. This is called artificial selection, but this would probably take a lot of time. However, we can speed up this process by using genetic modification. So, how exactly do we genetically engineer an organism? We really have two ways of doing this. One, a gene gun. It fires genes into plant cells and just relies on the chance that one of them will make it into the cell and that it will make it into the right place into the DNA when it's fired there, and that the cell will use this piece of DNA and hopefully spread it to the rest of the plant. I don't know exactly how efficient this is, and again, this doesn't really come up as much if you look at genetic engineering. I mean, it always comes up, but I have heard more about alternative ways to do this, like argobacterium. There's a bacterium, which is a plant parasite. It has this special thing called a plasmid, which is a circle of DNA protein that, since it's a circle, it can do more things than a regular strand of DNA. It has more structure because there are some extra proteins raveled around it. So basically, it's specialized to go into the nucleus of a DNA and then inserts itself into the cell.
This video is an illustration of the mechanism of agrobacterium using the genes for herbicide and antibiotic resistance. The genes are first inserted into the TI plasmid between the left and right borders. Since agrobacterium-mediated transformation is a binary system, the TI plasmid must then be inserted into agrobacterium using electroporation, sonication, heat shock, or some other method. Next, explants must be inoculated with agrobacterium. In this case, a scalpel is used to pick a colony from the plate and then wound the leaf of a plant. Agrobacterium then attaches to the plant's cell wall and transfers the tDNA portion of the TI plasmid to the host. This tDNA portion, which contain the genes encoding herbicide and antibiotic resistance, are then randomly inserted into the host's genome. The explants can be further cultured under sterile conditions on agar plates to form a callus, which is an undifferentiated mass of cells. The transformed callus can subsequently be cultured on agar plates containing the appropriate plant hormones and antibiotic to select only those plants that have been transformed. The result are whole transgenic plants exhibiting the trait of interest, in this case, herbicide resistance.
Now, the bacteria uses this to reproduce or something. It uses it to somehow benefit itself. Since it's a parasite, it uses this DNA to benefit the bacteria somehow. But we have figured out how to change the DNA so that it only affects our plant. It just affects the plant. Once it affects this plant, the gene will rapidly spread because it is a very efficient way of dealing with the problem that the plant may be having. So they induce the condition that they want the gene to spread in. The gene spreads to the other parts of the cell, and therefore the plant carries the gene. These plasmids spread all around the plant, but you can also do it with seeds, which is a more efficient way of doing it because you need less of them. So once they have either of these two methods have been performed, you have to breed out these gene-carrying plants to get your parent strain, I guess. It has complete sets of chromosomes, and all of the sets have this specific gene. This gene then goes, and when the plant produces seeds, this gene is carried on to the offspring, and they use this to breed it into the actual strain of crops, which basically means that the plant has the specialized gene and they breed it out into the common strains, and then usually it's patented and sold, and it usually somehow benefits humanity. Genetic modification is used in many ways, but most of them are implemented into crops and livestock. The first GMO livestock, it was announced and put up for FDA review as a genetically engineered organism in 2017, and the FDA decided they were banning it for a while, or at least until they decided what to do. And then, in March 8th of this year, 2019, they announced that they would be bringing it back into the United States. So, some fairly recent news, but a very recent discovery is one of the first genetically modified livestock, which I believe the company started working on in 2015. GMOs are used for many things, but most of them are in crops and a few are in livestock. Some other common GMOs include plants with fungal resistance and insect resistance. Now, you might think, if a GMO is toxic to a fungus or an insect, wouldn't they have high toxicity to us humans? The short answer, no. The long answer, also no. GMO resistance is targeted to remove proteins unique to one species or a few related species, like species in the same genus or family. Some other animals other than livestock have actually been genetically engineered. A popular example, if you've heard of glowfish before, it's a brand of aquarium fish. They have common fish like danios. They actually have ruby tetras, barbs. They have these fish, and I think they gave them some sort of squid DNA. Currently, GMOs contribute to society by making food more accessible, hardy, abundant, yielding, and sometimes be water resistant, contain natural pesticides and fungicides, and also resist herbicides. And then a big thing is yielding more fruit or seeds, and to live in less space and nutrient-rich conditions, or even color up more. In the future, they could even be used to create genetic resistance to ecological problems like chytrid, fungus, and frogs, or even resistance to things like temperature, like if you have a really cold winter or a really warm summer or a really warm winter. It will definitely help with things like climate change and other problems that seem to be harming us more and more. We could end up finding these resistant strains or genes and implementing them into actual natural habitats, but that's a whole other can of worms, which I really won't discuss today because that's a kind of complicated discussion. If you feel like you want to add some more onto this video, or talk about something related to genetics or genetic modification, feel free to comment in the comments. I appreciate learning more about topics because I am not by any means a geneticist, and I don't know the ins and outs of everything and every gene or exactly how this method works even. Uh, but if you would like to comment down below things I might have missed or things that you just want to point out about genetic modification, feel free. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's greatly appreciated, and I thank you in advance for subscribing if you do. If you don't feel pressured to. Also, you've probably heard this a million times, but also feel free to leave a like too. Unless you didn't like this video, then of course leave a dislike. I'm not recommending that you do that, but no one's gonna do anything to you, so you can leave a dislike if you really want to. Thanks for watching, and feel free to tune in to my next video.